Yeah, fine. So, good evening. So first of all, I would like to welcome GC sir. It was his idea to have a webinar, especially for the rural flour millers of Tamil Nadu. So while welcoming him, I thank you, sir, for all the support you have been extending in doing this program. And next, I would like to welcome Mr. D.K. Gupta, the president of the Rural Flour Millers Association of Tamil Nadu. He is also the managing director of Coimbatore Rural Flour Millers Mills. Sir, I welcome you on behalf of AgriBazaar. Also, I thank you for all the initiative you have taken. And to be candidly outspoken, I must admit that more than AgriBazaar, your association has worked for the success of this event. Continuously, you have advised your secretary to follow up and send reminder messages to all the members of the association. We are really honored, sir. Thank you very much. And sir, Mr. Balasubramaniam, we welcome you and thank you very much. And yeah. From all the members that you are a great speaker on this subject. I request DC sir to take it forward.
All right. Namaskaram, Vanakkam, good evening, good afternoon to all our friends, all the co-panelists, Team AgriBazaar and all the participants. It's such a delight for me to be back with people I've known for long years, the wheat milling fraternity, because I've addressed a number of events in the last, say, 25 years or so, but over the last maybe 5-6 years or so, we've lost touch. I'm so delighted to be back with them. I have 3 or 4 slides to show, and I'm going to 10 or 12 minutes. 10 or 12 minutes, a few thoughts on what we want to communicate. It is how do I maximize this? Yeah, slideshow. I'll go to the slideshow from the beginning. Yep. Okay, all right. Okay, all right, friends. Let me start talking about wheat. Of course, it is like carrying coal to Newcastle, as they say in English. But very quickly, just to set the context, I want to mention that, of course, India, we are the world's 2nd largest producers of wheat after China. It's a Rabi crop harvested in March, between March and May, planted in November, December. Earliest harvest starts in Gujarat by 2nd half of March, and it continues into April and May, of course, in Punjab, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh, etc. While it is harvested in about 2.5 to 3 months, it is consumed throughout the year, which means the cargo will have to be carried for the rest of 8 or 9 months. Our output of wheat has been rising. This is a Government of India statistics in 2020. This year, March, April, May, government estimate is 107 million tons. Last year, 2019 was 104 million tons. A year earlier, 100 million tons. And a year before that was 98 million tons. So there has been a steady increase in our production. Of course, there is a steady increase in our population. There's a steady increase in incomes. Therefore, rising incomes and expanding population obviously drives a demand for all food products, including wheat. Of this production, the Food Corporation of India, which is a government agency, procures approximately 1/3 of the crop. Occasionally, it's even a little more than that. And the principal areas of procurement by the FCI are Punjab, Haryana, and of course UP also. But this year, 2020, Madhya Pradesh became a focus of attention for the food corporation, and huge quantities were procured. The last figures that I heard of FCI procurement of wheat this year, 2020, was 38.8 million tons versus production of 107 million tons. But the best part is, while wheat is grown in northern India, whether it is Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, UP, Madhya Pradesh primarily, and Bihar, consumption, although the consumption is throughout the country, demand in South India is growing rapidly. Over the last 10, 12, 15 years that we've known, South India has been the fastest growing consumption market for wheat. And therefore, South India assumes significance when we discuss wheat of this country. The
GC
Food
sir.
Corporation of India's price
GC sir,
for the consuming region. Yeah, bolo.
I'm sorry
Yeah,
to
bolo.
interrupt you. If the
Yeah.
slides are not
Yeah.
changing, so if you can.
No, I'm not. It's changing. It is changing. We'll change. It is changing.
Okay.
Not a problem.
If you can enable
FCI
editing, if you can
No,
enable
I'm
editing.
okay. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Oh,
Please.
okay, fine.
It is changing. Don't worry. It is changing. The point is, for South Indian consumers, the price at which FCI sells is far higher than at the production center. Of course, transport cost is one of the elements, but because it's a national crop, because it is produced by a state agency called the Food Corporation of India, I've always argued for freight equalization. The crop has regional bias. It also has a seasonal bias in terms of production. Government has open-ended procurement, and therefore a uniform price for OMS, the open market sales, is required, and therefore the price cannot be substantially different between the producing region and the consuming region. Therefore, I would actually argue for a freight equalization. I have written about this in the past several times, but I think this country needs an organized effort to lobby the government for freight equalization, particularly for wheat. Unlike rice is grown throughout the country, but wheat is grown only in select northern states, and therefore that freight equalization becomes extremely important. I'm aware industrial users of wheat, particularly the roller flour mills, are very highly quality conscious. Many of them have branded products in the market, and therefore the uniformity of variety and the varietal quality, standardized varietal quality, becomes extremely critical. And these are issues that need to be certainly taken up with the policymakers. We used to import wheat, but over the last 2 years, because of customs duty, I guess the current rate of customs duty is 40%, if I remember correctly, and therefore that makes our import unviable. This is one more reason why there can't be a big difference between the price at the producing center and the price at the consuming center. If imports are allowed more freely and without customs duty, then I think South India may be able to import wheat from Australia. The freight rate from Australia to South India is much lower than the freight rate from Punjab to Chennai, for example. And therefore, FCI's price, in my view, should actually be equal to the import parity. Okay. Whether this will happen, I think we need to lobby, we need to work towards this policy. But I also want to very quickly flag some concerns. And what are these concerns? Currently, wheat is grown in about 30 million hectares. For 2020, it was 30.5 million hectares. But there is a limit to area expansion. Wheat area cannot expand. It can't become 35 or 40 million hectares. We just don't have that kind of land. At the same time, Punjab, Haryana, UP are practicing what is called grain monocropping, rice, wheat cycle, which which creates a huge amount of environmental risk. Soil health has deteriorated. Water table has gone down to alarmingly low levels. At some stage, the government of India, the policymakers will have to bring in crop rotation, particularly in Punjab, Haryana, UP, and therefore there is a there could possibly be a tightness in the supplies if crop rotation becomes mandatory. Next point, I want to caution all our friends, all our colleagues in the industry, is that Indian wheat is at the limit of heat tolerance. And therefore, because of global warming and climate change over the next several years, if average temperature during Jan and Feb, which are the critical growing months, if the average temperature goes, say, beyond 21 or 22 degrees Celsius in the main growing areas, it can affect yield of wheat. So this is again another challenge. And for I'm actually looking at a scenario over the next 5 years, given land constraints, given the need for crop rotation, given the fact that our wheat is at the limit of heat tolerance and will face challenge due to climate change, possibly our import into India may possibly become inevitable over a period of time. The last point I want to make is about recent agriculture market reforms. By early June, the government of India issued 3 ordinances. The first ordinance says amendment to the Essential Commodities Act 1955, as a result of which many grains, including wheat, rice, pulses, oilseeds, and oils, have all been kept out of the purview of the Essential Commodities Act, which means now millers and traders and everyone can actually fearlessly build stocks as much as you want. That it was actually hanging like a Damocles sword on the heads of the stakeholders in the wheat market. But now with these reforms in ECA, wheat is outside the purview of the Essential Commodities Act, which means there'll be no storage limit. You can build your inventory as per your business needs. There is only an exceptional situation of a war or famine or undue price rise that the government may invoke the Essential Commodities Act. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, millers are free to build as much inventory as they want. The second reform relates to allowing private markets to operate. All these years, we are used to APMC markets. Now, the government has allowed private markets. Even warehouse in your factory premise or warehouse outside the factory premise, silos, cold chains, these can become private markets. And therefore, private markets, I'm sure will come into the picture. Farmers will have greater flexibility in marketing their crop. They can go to APMC market or they'll go to private markets. But I can assure you, APMC markets are not going to die. APMC markets will rediscover themselves and become more and more efficient, and there'll be healthy competition between APMC markets and private markets. So this is the second one. The third ordinance relates to contract farming. Contract farming is now allowed. There is a legal framework, and therefore an entrepreneur who wants a particular variety or quality of any crop can go and enter into a contract with groups of farmers or farmer producer companies, and then they can enter into a price agreement, quality and quantity agreement. And therefore, this is again something which is very, very positive as far as our country is concerned. Therefore, these are agriculture market reforms introduced by the government of India. These are going to prove positive for the agribusiness, the agriculture markets and agribusiness of this country, stakeholders in the agribusiness. All the wheat roller flour mills are very important stakeholders in this ecosystem, in this market, and therefore these are amendments to the agriculture market. These are reforms that are going to become a game changer for agriculture markets, and I would urge each one of you to study all this closely and take advantage of this. With this, I think I will halt. Let me say good luck and God bless you all. Stay safe. And now I'm going to stop sharing and request our Gupta ji because he's the head of the Roller Flour Mills Association. I'm sure he has a lot to speak about this trade, about this industry. Gupta ji, the floor is yours. Sir, unmute. Yeah.
Yeah, now it's okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So I would like to just give you certain details and data which are, I think everybody would be knowing it. There are approximately 2,000 roller flour mills in our country, grinding nearly about 33% of the wheat produced in our country. South India alone has nearly about 200 flour mills approximately, and grinding about 65 lakh tons of wheat, converting into wheat products. Tamil Nadu alone has nearly about 40 mills, running mills, wherein the manufacturing capacity goes around between 15 to 20 lakh tons. Here, the government of India, the pricing which they have fixed, we really don't understand on what basis they are doing it. International market, the prices are much lower compared to the prices of wheat in India. Over and above that, as sir, you had mentioned, there is a difference in transportation. No, it is not the difference in transportation. It is the difference in the cost of wheat itself. Here, every year they increase the price even without taking the actual consumer into confidence. If they take the consumer, that is the flour millers, or certain associations into confidence to fix up a price, that would be the best thing, one. Second thing is, FCI is literally taking away everything from the market. Total wheat, they are taking away. And the market still, in spite of their procurement to such a high extent, we are still getting wheat at much lower price than what FCI is offering us. Today in South, FCI is offering us wheat at the rate of nearly about 2,400 rupees per quintal, plus the transportation, local transportation, I mean. Whereas now wheat available to us is at the rate of 2,050, 2020 and 2050. There's a vast difference. I really don't understand on what basis government of India is now planning to fix the price. Recently, the reserve price fixed by government of India on that is crop of 2021 is 2,135 plus the transportation. And there is the other variety which is a little lesser lost, or maybe the older grain which is of 2017 and 18, they are fixed at 2018. I still don't understand why this difference is to be kept. It doesn't make any sense to the miller as such. The third, in this particular thing, again, there are certain mills who are grinding only one particular variety or a quality of wheat, because today you have wheat flour to be made for biscuit, wheat flour for bread and the parota, and the other items which are there. Now, for everything, the wheat, if the cost is remaining the same by FCI, I really don't understand where we are going to head to. So the difference of pricing in wheat has to be there as far as the quality is concerned. And if not so, then as you had very clearly mentioned, that it has to be a single pricing all over the country, like rice and other things. Single pricing is necessary only for the, today, we are self-sufficient and wheat is being grown in the upper northern area. Previously, wheat was being imported from US, Russia, and all these places. At that time, why was it said that you have only one single price? The wheat was given all over India at a single price. And now why the differentiation? Because it's being produced in India, the pricing has to be double. Why? One. Second thing is today government of India is issuing rice, which can be directly consumed by the consumer. Whereas wheat, either it has to go to a chakki or it has to go to the flour mill for grinding. Now, whatever wheat is being issued as a free or at whatever cost it is being issued, according to me, about 60 to 70% is coming into the market, and then again it's coming into the flour mills, directly or indirectly. Well, I really don't understand what sense does it make to involve so many middlemen in between. Again, the cost is going up. Now, costing part of it, if you say north and south, today you go and buy a bread in the northern area or any of the northern states, you find the bread is 400-gram bread, a loaf is costing you nearly about 20 rupees to 25 rupees. Whereas if you take anywhere in south, it is not less than about 40 rupees. It is directly, it is affecting the consumers. It is not going to affect the millers, or it is not going to affect anybody else except the consumers. Why the differentiation? If the pricing of all the items have to be similar, let the whole country enjoy and let the whole country do the necessary. And in fact, there was a paper presented by your federation, which proved that if the wheat is reduced by about 500 rupees per quintal and given all over India with the transportation cost, that would have worked out much better in every way. In fact, Government of India would have gained nearly about 5,000 to 6,000 crores by saving by way of carryover cost, because carryover cost per quintal is coming to somewhere around 580 rupees per quintal per annum. So why should they incur the carryover cost? That also can be saved. But the flour mill are not able to convince the center, or not able to have a lobby in the center to see that these particular things are taken up, and nobody wants to understand. Nobody wants to understand in the center. They say that we are there, okay, we want to stabilize the price. How will they stabilize the price? Today, they are giving free wheat. Okay, good, that's very nice. But what's the use again? Again, that is coming into the market and then it is being sold. It is being sold at lesser price than the FCI. Now, FCI says that wheat is not being lifted by the millers. How can wheat be lifted by the millers if the price in the market are nearly about 500 rupees less than what they are giving? So Government of India has to come out with certain reforms, as you have mentioned, wherein to see that every consumer, they are looking at the farmers. What about the consumer? On one side, they say, tell the millers to reduce the prices. If they are going to give us wheat at 2,500 rupees, in what manner can we reduce the prices? So all these things taken into account, I really don't understand how and where we are heading towards. As what I would say is, unless until they come out with a single pricing throughout India, it's going to be a little difficult for them to manage. And if they have single pricing, there is a lot of saving, even by way of transportation. Today, millers who are grinding the product from Delhi is coming to UP, from UP it is coming to Karnataka, Karnataka product is coming to Tamil Nadu, Tamil Nadu is selling to Kerala. I really don't understand why this has to happen. Economy, they say one side they want to save the economy. How will they save the economy? Our transportation of product is so much that we are losing by way of logistics, which nobody wants to understand. In case they give us single pricing all over India, positively the prices in South will reduce. South will not go and buy wheat from the open market in the North. If they do not go there, in the North, which the wheat is available in the market, will still sell lower. Today, because we are going to North and buying wheat, the prices are at this level. But if we stop buying wheat from North, the prices in North will come down by at least 100 to 150 rupees per quintal without weight. That's all I've got to say. But in case you have any questions on certain thing, I can answer that.
Thank you. Thank you, Gupta ji. I completely agree with what you're saying. I empathize with you. I understand the anguish and from where you are coming. In fact, in the last meeting, the Reserve Bank of India also expressed some concern about inflation, food inflation. Prices of food products are actually going up. It's just gone a little beyond the comfort zone of the Reserve Bank of India. And therefore, I think that there is a strong case now which is developing to lobby the government of India to ensure that either allow import, which of course may not work, primarily because we have enough stocks in our country, but have a uniform pricing policy, and this kind of big differential is not going to work. And don't treat South India any different from other parts of. I think the point taken, and as we spoke in the pre-event meeting, if you are able to give us a note on this, at least from as a journalist, I'll certainly take it up. Yeah.
No, last time I gave you a small note about this C.K. Prahlad coming and giving a talk to the Rotary Club. Correct. He says, people say that India is a poor country. India is a poor country. How can India be a poor country when they can afford to pay 1,65,000 crores by way of interest alone on the food storage?
I agree. Point very well taken.
The last point which I would like to mention is, today they don't have storage. They have got cap storage. And about 6 years back, we had been to up north where the government of India, the Food Corporation of India was going to auction like 2 lakh tons of wheat. We went there, we saw the condition of wheat.
I can imagine.
Sir, at least about 100 meters from that area, even cattle would not go because it was smelling so bad.
Stinking. I know, I'm aware of this. Correct.
That wheat was totally given to the liquor manufacturer at 50 rupees.
Yes, I know, I can imagine.
50 rupees per kg. 50 paise per kg. I'm sorry, not 50 rupees. 50 paise per kg. It was given to them.
Right. I think it became a case in the Supreme Court. Even the Supreme Court made some observation. I remember 7 or 8 years ago. I understand. Gupta ji, point very well taken. Please allow me to now move to our friend Balasubramaniam. I'm sure he's going to share his thoughts about the wheat market, the challenges, and all that. Yeah, please.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, GC sir. And very good beginning by GC sir. He gave wonderful things about all the wheat houses growing in India and other things and all. And our president DK Gupta was mentioning about most of the problems, all what is there here. But as for me, what I wanted to say here, as pointed out by everybody, that consumption is only in South India most because we are not growing the wheat here. We are dependent only from North India. And right at the need of an hour, what is required is uniform pricing throughout the country. When everybody say one India, one ration card, then why we cannot say one India, one price? Then everything is going to be single one. Then why there should be a different pricing? Why I'm pointing out this here, when you take the freight per quintal, roughly we have to pay by racks of wheat. A rack of a wheat is 2,650 metric tons by 42 wagons when you move it from the railway. It's 250 to 265 rupees per quintal from MP region. And it's same from UP and Rajasthan, it's going to be 270 to 300. Very well, from the north, people who manufacture our co-millers can send the flour at the same freight amount which lands here. See, we are now in a very difficult situation in the flour mills in South India, where we have a lot of competition from our neighboring states and northern states and everywhere. You cannot sell any other product at a higher margin, and some brand items we can sell at a higher price. But that too, they have to struggle a lot. And the need of the hour now is also classification of the wheat. At the time of procurement, there is no classification of wheat is available. Here and there, you can call for Sharbati, you can call for some other varietal like Lokwan and some other popular varieties. But literally, there is no classification of wheat in whole of our country. Now, I think because of the APMC has been removed and private trade can buy directly from the farmers or market wherever throughout the country, this classification of the wheat is going to be a new thing where they can give a quality wheat on a standard parameters, they're seeking what wheat they wanted, like on a protein base or some other base. I'm not telling there are so much wheat are available in the country, but every state has their own seeds. It may be Lokwan, it may be milk quality PB343, it can be any three. They are mixed now together. There is no separate seed is available. This point has to be noted. Like the new seeds which is developed, I think 2 years, 3 years back, which is tested in Punjab, some HD varieties have given us really good results. That's what they told in the gluten and protein base. Any flour mill, if you take in entire India, they'll be talking about the protein and gluten parameters. This is very essential for us when we are doing the milling. So that this part has to be seen how we can separate it. By keeping a linear separator at the procurement centers, they can remove the refraction and give us a uniform hektoliter weight. When they do the hektoliter weight on a uniformity, they will get the beautiful results of the wheat or whatever may be the mixed wheat. Of course, the protein may be little vary in that. Sound grains, you can get a quality sound grains to that. And sir, GC sir, you said APMC and private will become equal in the competition once the APMC is removed. You can explain that to me. Then, we have from our federation, we have given a wonderful proposal to bring down the price by 5 rupees in the FCI open market price per quintal. So it will help all the millers throughout the country to liquidate the stocks. But the records are as per the paper reports. What we see is even the FCI and OMSSs, they are not selling. They say it's not required. We have to sell huge quantity. Since a lot of freebies are there because of the COVID situation, all the wheat will get consumed. I don't know how far that is going to be true or false. And lastly, one biggest flour miller's challenge is that as per the FSSAI food safety norms, the manufacturer is liable for the quality of the product when he manufactures and gives. Whereas the farmers are exempted from the FSSAI Act. When basically, like a microbiology, if a contamination happens in the wheat, at the growing areas, how it is, the responsibility will lie on a miller or a manufacturer or a distributor or whoever. This point has to be represented to the government, and identification of a stocks, any such like that is there, has to be identified and not to be sold. This is what is all required for the flour milling point. The rest of the COVID situation, now most of the places, everything is getting closed and selling is become very difficult. But even though we are in the food industry, we can call ourselves we are a little better compared to the other industries. We hope the COVID will get over very soon and we can come back to our business regularly. But the bright side, we have a very good future as a flour mill here. If you are on a quality based and if you can able to give one a particular variety throughout the year. For that, a lot of challenges we face, like from procurement till distribution and the pricing. I think all that, once the new policies like APMC removal and per procurement by the private trade and the essential commodity tax have been removed, I think will be really helpful. That's what I think. Thank you for everybody.
Thank you, Bala, for this wonderful exposition. 2 or 3 things. One, APMC is not abolished; it is not removed.
Yeah,
APMCs will continue along with private market. Therefore, there'll be expectation of a healthy competition between APMC and private market. This is number one. Number two, I completely agree with you about the FSSAI regulation. After all, agriculture commodities are natural products. These natural products have a tendency to be of a better quality or a slightly inferior quality, depending on the season, rainfall, and various other factors. And therefore, the FSSAI will have to build greater tolerance for some of the parameters. I completely agree. Third one, South India with rising per capita income, with higher disposable income, will increasingly over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, is going to be a bigger and bigger consumer of a variety of food products, value-added products, and certainly wheat is going to be one of them. So I think I completely share your optimism. Thank you very much, but we'll come back with some questions. I'm sure the participants will have questions. I'll go to Vijay Anand from Naga, and Vijay will speak to us about, share his views. Yeah, tell me.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm happy evening. Just please bear with my voice, but I just have a few points to share.
Please.
Since DK and Bala's covered many of the points, which is like a brief, out of the 100 million tons that's growing, about 20 million tons is coming into flour milling industry.
Correct.
And there's more of quality focused milling in the southern part of India and south, I would say Tamil Nadu, Kerala millers mill about 2 million tons of wheat. And as Bala was saying that, it takes about almost 5,000 rupees from farm to the time it reaches the mill, which is the complete handling, logistics, as well as, for quality wheat, we need to buy during the season and carry it throughout the year at the finance cost at the cost of funds in India. So this overall increases the cost of landed cost of wheat to millers in India, especially south. As you know, when imports were happening, south millers were very efficient. It doesn't mean that we are anti-farmer, but the cost that is being incurred in transport goes to nobody. It doesn't go to the farmer. It doesn't come to the miller. So what my suggestion would be, rather than having an open policy on import or export, like how it's done in pulses, there could be some rationalization. 2 million tons of import could be allowed. 2 million tons of export could be allowed. See, every country has got its own agroclimatic geographic conditions, which are very unique. Indian wheat is unique, like how Australian wheat is unique, or Ukrainian wheat is unique. India produces 450 varieties of genotypes, and there is a great demand for these kinds of wheat, which the export of this can be encouraged to, like for example, Sharpati or for Chakki Atta. You cannot make I have had many Canadian friends talk that, they eat pathetic chapati made out of the Canadian wheat, because a chapati made of Indian wheat has got a unique aroma and texture to it, which people are willing to pay a premium. So if the organized industry is allowed to export this kind of wheat, that brings income to the exchequer and to the farmer. In a similar way, let us say you allow 2 million tons of export. Same way you allow 2 million tons of import to south. So why should we, so when import happened, the landed price of imported wheat to south was cheap, both Australian premium wheats as well as, the milk quality wheats. There's one area of thing is, from the time it lands in the port to the time it reaches the mill, there's a huge handling cost of 2,000 rupees. This is because the port handling infrastructure is not developed to handle food grains. It is developed for handling coal, for limestone or urea or fertilizer. The conveyorization or mechanization exists. But because there is no clear policy on import or export of agro commodities, private investment has not happened in creating port infrastructure for handling and storage of food grains. So if there is a standard policy introduced to bring about this kind of a change, then this could attract some investment. See, imports when happens majorly to few ports like Tuticorin, Cochin, Kandla, or Hazira in the east. So at least a few, if there is a defined policy that the quota will be, India will allow and import and export, but the quota will be restricted based on the EPC, the Export Council policy. So then this could attract investment, and this could make the availability of good quality wheat throughout the year for South. See, in India, wheat is a single crop, whereas across the world, wheat grows at different times. For example, March, April, May, it's India. July, August, September, it is Europe. Australia, it is October, November, December. So why should we buy the wheat and carry the wheat throughout the year when wheat is growing around the year? We can save on all those finance costs. So if this kind of, and there is no loss to the government in this whole process. And the millers who want to buy good quality wheat to produce good flour, we can take advantage of this, and actually, the market will automatically correct itself, and we'll be able to supply quality flour at a more efficient price. So this is a point I really want to make, at least as far as import and export is concerned. And the other one, since has already been made, increasing the MSP to support the farmer is one thing, but premiumization of the wheat by at least, there are such simple technologies available while for testing the receivable parameters like moisture, protein, hectoliter, and for the this is very already established practices are there in all developing countries. A truck comes in hardly in 2 minutes. The auto sampler draws the sample, tests the protein, and the farmer is paid price per percentage of protein. So there they are incentivized. Here in India, I spoke to the directorate of IIWBR. He says the government has given us only 3 mandates: drought resistant, yield, and rust. These are the three: the yield, drought, and rust. So these are the 3 factors. Disease. So these are the 3 factors for which the farmer. So anything other than these are not their priority when they are coming into developing seed varieties. If at all in that variety you happen to get a good bread, or you happen to get a good yield, take it. That's not our preference. So unless the largest buyer changes their mandate, the paradigm shift is not going to happen. So, and we millers, and automatically we millers are finding it very, very difficult to source a homogeneous, consistent wheat to produce our flour. And so this is the point which has already been addressed. So I think with this opening up for private trade, this is a point that, that the incentivization of the farmer for producing a particular class and grade, if it is brought in, this need not be done directly by the government. Also, we can outsource it to private agency, because to do this kind of testing, for example, ITC does it. And so likewise, there could be a lot of private traders who can be encouraged to do this. If that comes in, the overall quality of the food safety standards of the flour that millers like us produce will definitely increase, and that would be a great value addition. Thank you.
Point well said. Point well taken, Vijay Anand. I can't agree with you more. Let me share something. I agree. I think at least 2 or 3 million tons will have to be allowed as import in terms of a quantitative ceiling every year, like it happens in pulses. For example, in pigeon pea and urad and moong, there is a quantitative restriction. It's allowed under a ceiling. I think wheat also deserves to come under quantitative ceiling. But let me let you to a small secret. Maybe you're aware of it. On wheat, there is a customs duty, correct? 40%, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 40%.
But if you were to import wheat from LDC, least developed countries, there is no customs duty. And that is how a lot of pulses, which are under quantitative restriction, which are under custom duty, for example, lentil and chickpea, pulses are coming into India without duty from LDC, least developed countries. For you need to do some homework, which are the least developed countries from where you can import wheat. If they are producing wheat, then there'll be no duty on that. But it's a secret you should explore. Okay, now. Having heard all these 3 wonderful panelists, very important points made, I'm going to request, where is our Murukappan, I want to ask you to request all our three panelists to give us a note. It is please collect a note from all of them about the points they have made, because they are very, very valid points, and we'll see how best to take this forward. Now, before we go into the question answer session, I'm going to invite Sarath to talk about AgriBazaar and how AgriBazaar is in a position to help address many of these issues.
Sure.
Sarath, the floor is yours.
Thank you, GC sir. Good evening, everyone. And I'm really happy and that all of you could make it to this event. And a special thanks to the Tamil Nadu Roller Flour Mills Association for helping us organize this event. And I noticed, Mr. Vijay Anand, you were unwell the other day and you still don't seem 100% okay. But thanks to you that you made it to the event. Thanks a lot. Now, I think the three panelists and GC sir have set the floor that the new reforms that have been unleashed can only be positive, whether it's about contract farming, whether it's about amending the Essential Commodities Act, or allowing something called a trade area where you can buy without the help of mandi licenses. It was really onerous and difficult for one to have a mandi license in every mandi in Madhya Pradesh from where you wanted to buy. And if you didn't, then you would have to buy it from a trader who would have then increased the cost of purchase for you. So as a result, because of these reforms, I think a lot of good things have begun to happen, and you will continue to see the effect of these reforms over the next few months, where, as I said, you can really now buy directly from the farmer without having a mandi license. The costs of intermediaries can come down. You have more choice as to where you want to buy from. Because your cost has come down, you can look at various other states that produce the quality of wheat that you want. And we want to tell you on this forum that AgriBazaar can be your partner, where we can work with you and help you with the consistent quality, the right quality that you need. But before I get into that, I quickly want to introduce you to you the AgriBazaar platform itself, because you might have heard, you would know us, but there is possibly many more things that we do than you may be aware of. So the first of all, AgriBazaar is a platform where we provide services for every stakeholder in the agri value chain. So our customers are farmers, traders, processors like yourselves, government agencies, and even banks that want to dispose of their commodity collateral. All these institutions are our customers or individuals, and the range of services that we provide on the platform start from at the bottom. If you can see on the slide, we provide crop advisory and inputs to farmers. So crop advisory to farmers, it's free of cost, and we help them get inputs at a much lower price than they would otherwise get from the village level retailer. And this also ensures that they get genuine inputs through AgriBazaar and not some counterfeit or fake products. You definitely know AgriBazaar as a platform where buying and selling of agri commodities happens. And there are a host of other services that we provide. We provide quality testing, financing, transportation, and even storage of commodities. So what we've realized is that, for every service, otherwise you need to call a different set of vendors. We have ensured that we have partnered with all the right vendors who can provide these services to our customers. We are customer facing, and we maintain the customer relationships and give them the best possible service. That's our role as AgriBazaar. And in the back end, you will have various service providers providing you these services on our platform, on a single platform. So to give you an idea, we've been around for 3 years now. And in the last 39 months since we've been around, we've done total transactions on the value on the platform. The total value is nearly 20,000 crores, and more than 37 lakh tons of commodities have been delivered on the platform. So the top few commodity baskets that we have transacted on the platform are grains, oilseeds, and pulses. So these are the three commodity baskets that we have traded on the platform. Now, the platform features, the AgriBazaar platform itself is available both on the mobile app and the website. You can access AgriBazaar from anywhere, either from your laptop or a desktop or your mobile phone. And what it provides you is transparent price discovery. You can negotiate electronically with the sellers, and you can continue to remain anonymous. You do not need to disclose as to which company you represent when you have listed the trade on our platform. And that anonymity itself is a big plus. And on top of that, you can electronically, through your mobile or desktop, just negotiate. So you may have listed your trade for, let's say, 2,200 rupees for delivery to your location, and the seller might have said 2,300, and you can continue to maybe increase your price possibly from 2,200 to 2,225, and this person might come down and so on, and this can go on until you agree on a certain price. Once you agree on the price, the AgriBazaar team comes into play and they ensure that the settlement of the trade is done smoothly. Now, within our app, we also have the feature of a ledger, which is for easy reconciliation of every trade, every paisa that you have paid to either the seller or anybody else, or for any other service or AgriBazaar. There are some other features which might not be very relevant to you, but this app is a very powerful one for all users of AgriBazaar. Now, the entire 20,000 odd crores of gross transaction value that we've done on the platform was channeled through AgriPay, and AgriPay is our digital wallet. So to transact on AgriBazaar, one needs to register, and registration is free of cost. All we need is some basic identity documents about the company, the GST certificate, the authorized signatory, and so on. Just very simple 4 documents. And when you register with us, an AgriPay account is automatically opened, which means that as a buyer, you deposit your money into your digital wallet when you have to pay a seller, and our settlement system automatically debits your account and passes the money to the seller. It's as simple as that. All you need to do is just put money into your wallet. That is it. Because we know whom you have transacted with. The rest of the process is taken care of by the system automatically. And this is important because from a platform principle point of view, we want to ensure that both parties are satisfied, there are no defaults, you get the right quality, and the seller gets his money on time. The other thing is that disintermediation is a big part of the platform. So if you want to reduce your cost of purchase, it is very important you connect to a village level aggregator, if not a farmer. Farmer would be the best, but a village level aggregator might be slightly better because he can take care of some basic cleaning and other processes or grading and then supply the material to you. Now, for this sort of a person, and if he needs to give you a credit of 20-25 days, he might not be in a position to do that. But given the fact that there is AgriPay in the entire process, he can say that since I'm going to receive money from this buyer, somebody may be willing to discount his invoice and give him loan from a formal channel at a much lower price than he would have bought from a money lender. So this entire wallet process ensures that even small suppliers can raise money and give you the desired credit period that you may need for fulfilling your internal processes and then making the payment to the seller. So this is a very powerful concept and it helps everybody in the agri value chain. Now, we've heard of the reforms and so on, but how does that actually happen? So AgriBazaar has already been working with farmers at various levels, and we work with farmers in 3 different ways. Let me first concentrate on the FPOs. We work with FPOs across the country in 11 states. Right now, 119 FPOs work with us across the country, and they work with us in reducing the cost of transaction for our processors. The second way farmers connect with us is that because our parent company is a warehousing company, Star Agri, we are able to utilize their warehouse premises and create a mandi outside the APMC premises. So we've already been doing this for a year. So we have already experienced this process. The reform thing has just come in June, but we've been doing this for the last 1 year because we had the license to operate e-mandis. So at warehouses, we are operating these mandis where farmers can come directly with their produce, get their quality tested, and their quality certificate of that commodity is then listed for trade on the platform. So buyers like you, even from a faraway distance, can look at the quality certificate and then bid based on the quality on the quality certificate. And the great thing for the farmers is that instead of somebody just picking up the commodity in their hand and assessing the quality, here a scientific lab is there at the warehouse, and then the quality is assessed, and the farmers get the money by the end of the day. So that's the sort of e-mandis we operate. And the last way for us to work with farmers is through agri-entrepreneurs, where an agri-entrepreneur is from a village who works with about 150 to 200 farmers. And he not only provides advice from AgriBazaar to the farmer, but he also provides inputs to the farmers through AgriBazaar. And when the harvest is done, this person aggregates the output from the farmers and sells it on the AgriBazaar platform. So the agri-entrepreneur is our vital connect in the last mile in our relationship with the farmer. So these are 3 different ways of connecting with farmers for us. And at the moment, we have more than 2 lakh relationships, farmer relationships on the platform. So that was on a generic level. Now let me talk about what are we doing in wheat. Now, one thing that has energized us, that we were operating in a certain way till the reforms were announced. But after the reforms were announced, we've decided that this is the perfect storm for us to now expand. So we have increased our ground team. We have increased our ground team by 5 times. Okay? So we have people across the country. We have identified locations. But let me talk about wheat specifically. So for wheat, we have people present in the following locations that you see on your screen. And we are in a position to supply the varieties on the left-hand side, the first column on the screen. So we will be able to supply mill quality, Tukdi, 1482, 3077, Lokwan, Sharbati, and Durham. All these varieties we will be able to source from these given locations. And what needs to be done at your end is this, that obviously you will be connected with multiple suppliers through our platform. You need to list a buy trade. And shortly after my presentation, we'll give you a short demo of how you can list a trade and how you can negotiate and so on. So you need to list a buy trade, and in the contract note, so every trade is accompanied by a contract note where you specify the variety that you're looking for, the quality of standards that you want the commodity which is being purchased by you to adhere to, what are your payment terms, and what is the delivery location. Based on this, the seller will quote a price. So let's say you have put in a buy trade for 500 tons at 2,225 rupees. This person will look at the various terms and conditions in the contract note and quote a price. And as I've mentioned earlier, if that price is slightly higher than your expectations, the 2 parties can negotiate. And you may get bids from various suppliers, not just one. So you may get multiple bids, and you can choose whom you want to negotiate with. You can also simultaneously negotiate with multiple bidders. Now, from the suppliers, what we do is we take an earnest money deposit so that once a price is fixed, they cannot go back on their promise of delivering the commodity. So this EMD is designed in such a manner that in case there is a default, what we do is we transfer his EMD to you, the buyer, so that it covers your price risk for the next few days and you can find another source. So we mitigate the risk of default. We cannot eliminate it, but we've seen that we haven't had a risk default on our platform in the last 39 months of operations, because this prevents people, once they've deposited money, to default. And once, as I said, the trade has you agreed on a price, let's say it was 2,250, AgriBazaar connects the seller with the buyer, because until that time he doesn't know the exact address to deliver. We inform the buyers as to when the seller's trucks have started or when their goods have reached the port, and when they are being loaded on the ship, and when they are expected to reach the buyer's location. So we are fully involved in the settlement process. From a quality perspective, I've already heard each of the three panelists talk about quality, and I know that is a very important concern. And we know that a lot of blending and other things happen. So the reason that we have ground teams in all these places that I mentioned before is to ensure that when this commodity is loaded, our team can actually check what sort of quality is being loaded, so that on arrival, you are satisfied that you've got what you asked for. So that's broadly how AgriBazaar works. So that's it from me. I'll take questions from the audience once the question answer session gets underway. But for the time being, let me just hand it over to my colleague Dipanshu, who will quickly demonstrate how negotiable trades, how you can list and negotiate with the counterparty. Dipanshu, over to you.
Thank you, Sarath. And let me just start with sharing my screen. So as Sarath has mentioned, the system does really help you achieve much more greater heights in your business, and any technical challenges. So my team and me are there to help you out right from the registration through the bidding process, creating your own trade, and then tracking each of your deliveries. So I'll just quickly start with the website, how it looks and feels, what all different features do we have on the website. So once you come on the website, it gives you a basic idea of what the AgriBazaar platform is, what it does, how it does it, and a rough idea of what all trade listings are there. So once you are on the screen, you scroll down a bit, you see all the listings of the private trade, the trades that are happening on the platform. This is the actual trades that are actually happening on the platforms. If you go on to see the list, you would see there's a different of like around about 25 plus commodities that are live right now in different quantitative across India. And any of the quantities, any of the trades, or any of the commodities that you are interested into, specifically because we are into wheat, so I'll just pick wheat right now. So they are around about, so there are 2 trades which are live in wheat as of now. Next, I'll just showcase you how easy it is to create the registration process. So once you are on the page, you just click on the register. On the register screen, you will have to provide me a number. So you have to provide a number that you want to use in. So I'll just use a number that I have. So you put in your number, send an OTP. An OTP would come to you. You just need to punch in that OTP. And it's just a basic 4-step process in which you need to select your type in case you will be a trader. So we'll select the trader. You will have to provide the name of the company over here. If it's a partnership firm, so firm name would have to be provided. An email address that would be associated with this. That would be associated on which you want to receive all the alerts, all the information. then you would have to provide you a basic information on your certificates, a GST certificate, PAN card, a cancel check. That is the requirement that we have. You just, what you do is either select a multiple documents or just have them in one document, select those documents and send it across to us. And done. And then a basic process of registration. This is how easy the registration process is. And then you can go on to select the different commodities that you are interested into. So almond, if you are into wheat, you can just type in wheat, and any other commodity that you might be interested into, any of the lentils or any of the other commodities, spices, anything that you are interested in, you can just type in those commodities, select those commodities over here and submit. These selections help us identify what are of your interest, and based on your interest, we are able to send you targeted alerts. We are able to send you different trades that you might be interested into, because sending out there on an average, we have around 500 to 600 listings of different type of government as well as private trades that happen on the platform, and sending out all that information to the user is of no use. So that's why we take all this information so that we can work on your profile, help you identify what is of, or what based on your interests, what should be of importance to you. At this step, a basic registration process has been completed. All the information that you have provided has been sent to our operations team, which would analyze this information, see if there is any gaps, any further information is required. They'll get back to you on the number and the email provided. If there is none, you will receive an email saying that your process has been completed. You are now an approved user on the platform and you can start trading. Meanwhile, you can go through the website, see what is happening. You can even create your trade. So we don't limit traders to, you can create your trade. You can browse different trades. You might not be able to participate as of now, but you can still browse, you can still create your trade and read different information that is available on the platform. I'll just showcase you, if let's say, assuming you are already a registered user on the platform, how would the different screens look like, and what would be the different experience that would be there. So once I'm on the platform, you can see there's a create your trade button right over here, as well as there's a create your trade button right over here as well. So either of two you can click and it takes you a screen where you can just punch in the requirement that you have. I want to sell or I want to buy. So in this case, a majority of the participants are buyers as of now. So I want to buy, you can click on type in wheat. I'll just click on the different screens, sorry. So I want to buy wheat. You can select the type of any of the wheat varieties that you are interested in, graded, milk quantity, or sharbati. I'll choose sharbati just for an example. You choose the quantity in which you want to buy. Let's say you are looking forward to buy 500 metric ton. So you choose your unit and an indicative price. So what price are you looking at to buy? If it's a quintal, you choose quintal. If you want to make it in MT or another. So we support multiple units and multiple currencies, just to, if somebody is interested into an export import trade. So INR, quintal. You mention your commodity location, where is your mill, where you want this to be delivered. You mention your start date, when the trade needs to be started. You select the end date, when this lead has to be stopped. And then this is a field where you actually mention the different details that are going to be shared with the seller or the supplier. That what would be your payment terms. Let's you say that, okay, payment within 7 days or X number of days. And then you would say, okay, I have quality requirements, certain quality requirements like hectoliter would have to be this percentage, protein this much, FM this much, moisture this much, and any other requirement into gross weight, FOR, all those details would go over here. You would click on the accept. And if it had been a cell case, you would have to upload documents, upload the images of either you have your quality certificate of the or lab assaying certificate of your produce, or if it, or can be the photographs of the storage where you have the commodity. You just click on submit, and this listing would go into the system. So you would see this as submitted. On submission, this request goes to our central team, operations team. They again verify the details, what else is there. They might even reach out to you if there's a detail missing, if they see any discrepancy in that listing that has been created. So they would go on to this, and if there's no issue and they find, this listing would automatically become live. As you see, all other entries, they are live right now. So these entries, along with, so this automatically will become live, and other participants or the suppliers would be able to see this entry and they will be able to participate. So next, I'll show you how a basic participation happens on the platform. Okay, so we are on a trade listing page right now. So this is at one of the trade pages that is there. So you can see there's a wheat requirement for sell, and the location is he's selling is from Jhansi. Available quantity is 500 quintals. And with this, I can place an offer that I see, okay, so I want to provide him. So there are two types of requests that are there on the platform. One is to buy and one is to sell. So for sell, it means buyers are required. To buy means sellers are required. So there might be any confusion. So this is for sell, you require buyers, and to buy trade, we require sellers. So this is a sell trade. So we require buyers in this case. So if I want to buy, let's say 100 quintal, I will mention 100 over here, and the price. So the price is 2150 that he's willing to sell. So I probably want to buy it as, let's say 2100. I'll just mention my price and I'll mention my validity. What validity does is that given the market fluctuation, you can mention the validity in number of hours ranging from 1 through 24, where you say how much time is my bid valid for. So if somebody doesn't accept or doesn't give you an offer within that stipulated time, there is no binding on you to accept an offer which comes after this validity period. So with this, I can click on send offer, and this offer would be sent because this is a actual listing. I'm not sending an offer. So with this, an offer would be sent to this seller saying that somebody is looking forward to buy 100 quintal from you at this price. If you are willing to sell at this price, or if you are willing to counter on this price, you can make a counter negotiation. Or if you are willing to accept this price, you can accept this price. And this keeps on continuing till the time either of the parties would accept the offer from any of from counterparties. Once this happens, the trade goes into the settlement process, in which we help you out in how the deliveries would be made, and with the quality that you require, and the fund transfer would happen to close that trade. This is all from a platform per se. Any other questions regarding technology? I can answer them.
Thank you, Dipanshu. I will hand it back to GC sir for the question and answer session. Sir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's extremely interesting. Increasingly, as I tell participants in a number of webinars that I've been addressing over the last 3 months, post-COVID, a lot of new developments are going to take place across the world. And of course, in our country also, I'm able to see increasing digitization, increasing automation, particularly automation of the supply chain. And of course, the AgriBazaar initiative is certainly an integral part of the supply chain automation and bringing in digital technology to bring buyers and sellers together quite seamlessly. And therefore, with this, we have one or two important questions in the chat. One of them, in fact, which I had myself thought, but it's come from Prashant Jain, is about 5% GST on packaged foods. All the branded packaged foods attract 5% GST. Attract 5% GST. I think I have always believed food should not be taxed at all. And because we want to promote quality consciousness, we want to promote food safety and food standards, but taxing packaged food, branded foods, the government is actually doing a disservice to the consumers. And this is something I would think that the association should represent. I think all the food processing companies together, all the players in the branded packaged segment, whether it is rice or wheat or salt or edible oil or whatever else, I think all of us, all people have to come together and make a very strong representation. I believe this 5% GST on foods is complete, and basic foods primarily is completely not justified at all. And if there are more questions, then I'm sure the panelists will be very happy to answer. I find, yeah, I think I'll probably go back just one more round. Go back to first Gupta ji. Gupta ji, any kya bolu main? Any concluding remarks, parting comments? Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, I would like to add, like in India, you can divide the population into 3 segments, like you have 80% and 12% and 8%. Now, that is, I'm coming to the branded part of it.
Yeah.
8% are not bothered what you're buying. They only want branded. 12%, they look into the costing part of it. 80% are the one who are being directly affected. I really don't understand why they have this branded and non-branded. Maybe only because of a few companies who are doing this branded. Government of India thinks that they are making tons of money. I really fail to understand. In fact, there are so many mills who really had a brand conscious, and they were having certain branded products being put into the system. But now everybody, because of competition and because 5% is not a small sum, it is a huge amount as far as the flour mill is concerned, because the margins are very, very thin. So thin that I would say 50% of the flour mill, maybe there are occasions when you make good money, but 50% of the flour mills are just running at no profit, no loss. 10% or 20% might be making some profit. Balance 30% are, making losses. They don't know whether to run or not to run. It totally depends from time to time, depending on if they make, like if they have 1 or 2 months which are very good, they sustain for the whole year. Otherwise, they also just walk away. Regarding this procurement part of it, they say, of course, what AgriBazaar is doing is a good thing, that they are contacting directly farmers and giving the benefit to the farmers. What about FCI? FCI buys from the traders, not from the farmers. 90%, 10% maybe from the farmers.
Absolutely.
The traders, they go and commit to the person there. Okay, I'll get you 1 lakh ton. Other will say 2 lakh ton. Other will say 3 lakh ton. These people, because they have backing of money, they go and give them whatever is available and say, okay, you take this much of money now, and balance we will see. That will see, God only knows how much they will see. This is one part. The other part, 90 or 70 or 80%, or I don't know what ratio it would be, the farmers have, coming under the Zamindars. They have taken a loan from the Zamindar. Now, loan coming to the farmer, whatever he produces goes to the Zamindar. Now, Zamindar will give them whatever he likes and balance go. I really don't know where the farmers are being benefited. It is only for the namesake that the farmers are being benefited. There is one particular comment which I would like to make, but I really don't know whether I should make or not. This farmers are telling that the money, loan which they have taken, that loan is to be forfeited or something like that. I really don't know if the money is gone to the farmers.
Farm loan waiver. You're talking
Yeah,
about farm loan.
your farm loan waiver. Has it gone to the farmers?
Very true. Very true. Very true.
I don't know.
I
It's a
agree.
totally uncertain thing.
Gupta ji, I completely agree with you, and I also know I have exposed a certain racket in procurement. I remember a few years ago when mustard seed prices were ruling below the minimum support price. NAFED was the buyer. There were traders who bought from the farmer at the lower price and gave it to NAFED as for procurement at a higher price and made a killing. So the farmer did not benefit at all. ये सब होते रहता है. I know it's a tragedy, but अभी क्या करें हमारा देश में. That is why we need to raise our voice. That is important.
And one more point is,
yeah,
what is the percentage of farmers we have? And what is the percentage of consumer we have? I think government has to take in both ways and balance it in such a way that even consumers should get the benefit.
Exactly. There's no doubt at all. Bilkul, there's no doubt at all. And look at the developed economies, whether it is the United States or Canada or all the European countries, Japan, Korea, Australia. They are called OECD countries. They all give annually for agriculture $350 billion as subsidy. Whether it's a producer subsidy or consumer subsidy, is a $350 billion every year. These developed countries give a subsidy. I think we are not doing anything, but we are into this farm loan waiver and all that. I think I completely agree with this.
Where it goes, only God knows.
Bala, you have any comment? Any parting comments to make?
Yeah, that is when you are talking about the least developed countries, or we can bring in the wheat.
LDC.
Yeah, and how you are going to see the phytosanitary certificate issued, because
there may be operational issues, because I work with pulses trade. I know it is happening in pulses trade, and it is legal. It is not illegal. It is legal, legally permitted. Okay. Any commodities from LDC is duty free. Therefore, you should examine all the other aspect, documentation, etc.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else, Bala? You have anything to add?
No, nothing, sir.
All right, thank you. Vijay Anand, anything to add? Vijay Anand, are you there?
No, I think he's left.
Okay, I think probably.
No, I'm there, but no, nothing.
Okay, you have no comment to make. Please. Okay, I think we are actually coming, I guess, to the end of this discussion, this webinar. We assembled at about 6 o'clock, and now it's nearing 7:30. I thought it should be over by 7:15, but I think thanks for the patience and the kind of interest that everybody has shown. Before I hand over this back to Team AgriBazaar, and I want to compliment Team AgriBazaar and Murugappan and Sarath and all the others for organizing this. Let me say good luck. God bless you all. Stay safe. Sarath.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, GC sir. And on behalf
thank
of
you very much.
I wish to formally thank the Tamil Nadu Rural Flour Mills Association, Mr. D.K. Gupta, our panelist, Mr. Balasubramaniam, and Mr. Vijay Anand for having joined us here for a very insightful conversation. We will get in touch with each of you individually to see how AgriBazaar can actually benefit you in your operations. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarath.
Thank you very much. Thank you.